Alright, this is part 2 of my series on editing in DaVinci Resolve. This one I want to talk about effects. Effects like halation, glow, grain, and anamorphic distortions. These are all going to be in the free version of DaVinci Resolve. Alright, so you're going to start by going into DaVinci Resolve color page and drag on your power grade. And if you're already lost, don't worry, I made a video on how to set up a power grade and save it to your library to use on any clip. This video also goes into simple color grading techniques and how to set up a film emulation LUT in the free version of DaVinci Resolve. A lot of the nodes in my power grade don't need to be here just because we're going to look at a bunch of effects. So I'm going to delete those, and you can right click and clean up your node tree if it gets messy. I'm going to start by showing you how to make a halation compound node and save it to your gallery. If you try to use the halation from the effects panel, you'll actually get paywalled because this is a part of the DaVinci Resolve Studio. So this is how to get around it. You're going to start by adding 2 nodes before your color space transform to Rec 709. Select these 2 nodes, right click and hit create compound node. Now open that compound node by double clicking it. We're going to add 3 more nodes by hitting Option S 3 times. Now drag these middle 3 nodes down. Now add a layer mixer in another node. Connect the bottom 3 nodes to the layer mixer and then to the last node in the chain, and the top node to the top input of the layer mixer. Now you want to make sure to set your layer mixer composite mode to add. Now in the first and last node, you're going to go into the effects panel and drag a color space transform onto them. In the first node's color space transform, you're going to set the input to DaVinci Wide Gamma and DaVinci Intermediate, and the output to DaVinci Wide Gamma Linear. Now in the other color space transform, you're going to set it to the opposite, DaVinci Wide Gamma Linear, DaVinci Wide Gamma, DaVinci Intermediate. Now in these bottom 3 nodes, this is where we're actually going to create the effect. On the first one, that's going to be how we select the highlights. You're going to create a very simple curve by dragging a point down just like this. And we can refine this later when we have the actual effect set up. Select the second node and go over to your color wheels. In the gain wheel, you're going to set your red to a 1.7 and your green to a 0.8. And finally, our third node will bloom the color out over the edges of the highlights. So go to your third node and click on the blur tab. Go to the radius sliders and make sure to decouple them. On the red, you're going to set it to 0.7. On the green, you're going to set it to 0.6, and you're going to leave the blue alone. Now your halation is set up. You can see it peeking through the edges right here. And if you want to refine the gain or how much the halation appears, go back to that first node and move around the point you added on the curve. And that is halation. Now I'm going to show you how to add it to your power grade so you can use it on any clip. Take a screenshot of your node tree or of a cool halation graphic from Google. Drag it into your timeline. Now in the color tab, right click on the clip that you made the halation node in. Hit display node graph. Drag the halation compound node onto this new clip. Right click on the image and click grab still. Now you can drag it onto any clip. Now I'm going to show you how to do some anamorphic distortions to the edges of your frame. I shot this on an anamorphic lens, and you can see that there is aberrations of different colors on the edges of the frame, and so we're going to recreate that. We're going to place this effect after your color space out into Rec 709. So open your effects panel and drag on a radial blur. We want to set the strength to something pretty low to start, and you can always adjust this later. I like to switch to stylized. I think it looks a little nicer. The main thing we want to do is the channel adjustments, the red, green, and blue. We want to bring the red and the green down and the blue a little up to get the right color. Now if your subject is slightly out of the middle of the frame, you want to make sure to add a window so only the edges are affected. Go to the window tab while still on the same node and select the circle. Now invert it and drag it out to fill your frame. If you want to go further to make your anamorphic look, a lot of people like to add letterboxes or black bars to the top and bottom of their footage to emulate that aspect ratio that anamorphic footage has. But I wouldn't recommend doing this. Instead, you should go to the timeline settings and adjust the resolution to the aspect ratio you want. And don't worry, you won't lose your letterboxes. If someone watches this on their device, depending on their device, the letterboxes will be different sizes to have the maximum resolution. Now I want to show you glow. I almost add this to all of my footage, even if it's very subtle. You can go into your effects panel and drag on the glow. You can adjust the sliders here to whatever you like best. One of the main things I always do is I adjust glow color to a nice golden orange. And you want to make sure to adjust the spread to make sure it blooms out over everything in a nice way. And you can adjust the threshold as a gain and mess with the other sliders till it's something you like. And finally, grain. See, grain in the effects panel of the color window is actually paywalled as a part of the studio version of DaVinci Resolve. We can get around this by going into the Fusion tab and adding the film grain. You want to make sure to add the grain pretty subtle because too much can make the footage look bad. Fusion is a very powerful tool that can go hand in hand with color to enhance effects, and pretty much everything in Fusion is not paywall. So I made a video on understanding Fusion and how to make your titles and credits stand out. That's all.